Baruchim Aboim B'Shem Irgin Shir Torah. Moses Boston. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir. All the men who Mashiach to come in person, all the ladies and Ezras Noshim, everyone listening in through the phone and watching online. Baruchim Aboim. I have to give a big yeshikach to Mr. and Mrs. Noach Karas for sponsoring tonight's shir. Boy said there's only a few shirim remaining, as well as the upcoming annual dinner. You could either sponsor a shir or put an ad in the journal in the honor of this upcoming dinner to honor one of the Rabbanim whose shirim you've enjoyed and have a chelik and Abbasas Torah, the Rabbim of Irgin Shir Torah worldwide throughout the year. Call Irgin Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email tapecenter@yeshivanet.com. Tonight we have the kavod to have with us Rabbi Yosef Eisen, Rav Kollel Bnei Torah, a noted Kashrus expert, to give us a special update and presentation on Bnei Kashrus. Rabbi Eisen.
Closer focus. That's okay. Get by it. Whenever there's a shir on Bnei Kashrus, I'd like to preface my discussion with some type of a more profound background, and because normally Kashrus is talking about food, and you can't get a more davar gashmi than food. And in order to be able to sort of understand perhaps a more sublime perspective, I'd like to share with you some opening remarks that hopefully will put our discussion into the proper light that Bnei Torah should use in viewing their inyonei achila. There's a pasuk in Parshas Toldos. Yitzchak Avinu says he's feeling old. V'lo yadati yoimoisi. He doesn't know when he's going to die. He reached an age, korev, to his man that he has to worry, like Rashi says. And he calls Yaakov, he calls Esav, and he tells Esav, Sono kelecha telya v'chashtecha, be mashchiz your knife, your Shlita knife, go out v'tzei atzodeh v'tzudeli tzoyed. And then listen to this next pasuk, Adav Peli, Yitzchak Avinu, the Oila Tamima of the Ovis HaKadoshim, says, Asli mat'amim kasher ahavti. Doesn't he also ask, Asli mat'amim, make me geshmak emil, asher ahavti. This is what is on Yitzchak Avinu's mind, terem amos, to have a last delicious meal, kasha ohev, in order to, and that's the only way to varecha nafshi. And to varecha, it wouldn't have been enough nafshi to add. The whole pasuk is muksha ad ma'oid, chaser havana klal, that is difficult to understand. Even what the pasuk, what the Torah Akdosha wants to convey. These brachas were the brachas that would perpetuate Klal Yisrael. This was the koyach of bracha that Avram was given by the Rebbeinu Shalom, and Avram Avinu gave it over to Yitzchak, and now Yitzchak was going to give it over to Esav, to his Bnei Agadol. But understanding this pasuk, I want to share with you a shtickle from Reb Chaim Vital in the Shara Kavanis. Chaim Vital writes the following: he writes that Hoidoi feches es hanois hamaychel of ziv hashchina. A person makes a bracha, and there's a koyach by making a bracha on an ordinary pastrami sandwich, or on a cookie, or on a cold drink, and he's able to take a dove Michael, transform it into something which he calls the ziv hashchina. Ki al yidei zeh mekashres hagashmi l'ruchni. The greatest koyach that the Rebbeinu Shalom endowed a human being was to take something which is the ultimate gashmi and transform it into the ultimate ruchni. That's the koyach of nafshay shel Yisrael. And Reb Chaim Vital writes, "V'nasa hagashmi sulam mutzav arza." The Kaf HaChaim brings this down. That means the food that we eat becomes a ladder that's rooted on earth, v'roisha magia shemaima. And then Reb Chaim Vital adds, v'gam omali moiri, the Arizal was megal to Reb Chaim Vital, ki ikar hasogas ha'odem el ruach hakodesh, that the ikar hasogas ha'odem el ruach hakodesh tluya al yidei kavonas ha'odem ezahirus b'chol brachas anhenin. Hear this? Whatever ruach hakodesh, what does that have to do with us? It means that sometimes a person has a clarity of what he has to do, a clarity of a decision he has to make. This can oichet hasten a nitzis of ruach hakodesh, and that happens through zehirus and brachas. So memela, if we're talking about that happens like days zehirus and brachas, kal v'chomer, it has to start with kosher macholim. A bracha cannot be chal on something and do this type of an extraordinary mice of transformation if it doesn't start off with the zehiris and the kiyum of all the halachas of the oichlin. Memela, now we understand the pasuk by Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak Avinu wanted to give over, he wanted to take brachas, he wanted to make the bracha tivrecha nafshi, he wanted bracha nafshi, not only the brachas to give over to Esav, which ultimately went to Yaakov, but he wanted to say the brachas nehenin. So he could be nis'ala, it could be a sul of mutz of arts of Rosh Hashanah Shemaima. That was the soid of Asli Matam Kashrus Hafti. Kashrus Hafti of being able to be Mahapich, Gashmi and Teruchni, and that was the bracha that he was going to give over to Esav, which ultimately went to Yaakov, and that's Unzer Koyach. That means that whenever we touch food, whenever we look at food, whenever we eat food, that this has the potential. So now, let's talk about practical inyanim. It's the summer, there's 2 weeks left to the summer, and I'd like to talk about practical issues which is not the run-of-the-mill discussions of a regular, so to speak, kashrus shmooze. I want to mention something which somebody just mentioned to me the other day. It has become very popular, these moving targets called food trucks. Very popular, especially Bismanenu, where, especially last time, now over here, the country is filled with food trucks, going from colony to colony. Some people don't want to go out. People don't want to go into stores. People want to sit home. Now, what's the problem with food trucks? Put food on a truck and have a truck. But the problem is that you always want to, the person selling the food, he has to have the cost of running the truck. So now he has to pay for somebody to be on the truck. Who exactly could you find that is willing to stay on a truck 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, travel from colony to colony? The pickings become extremely slim. Now, once that is understood, the first thing to know is who's giving hashgacha on the truck. I mean, that's an interesting question. On my block, I'm going to go Indian. When I'm talking about a truck, we could talk about a sushi truck, and we could talk about a truck that sells beverages, or we could talk about a very popular ice cream truck, which is not only negea to going into all of the colonies, but also during the year, the ice cream truck comes, and the kids literally bolt out from wherever they are, and they line up, and who exactly, there was an ice cream truck. How did I come to understand the depth of the lack of clarity of who exactly controls these trucks? Because a truck pulled in front of my house and sideswiped my car. Sideswiped my car. Okay? It happens. So then, of course, I had to deal with it. I saw him sideswipe, and he didn't deny it. Then all of a sudden, he gets out of the car, and I said, give me a license. No, I don't want to give him my license. Then we started a whole, he didn't want to give me his license. He didn't want to give me his license, either, whatever reason it is, that's not important. But the point is, by the time we went and discovered who was his Rav Machshir, started to look on the truck, who's his Rav Machshir? Let's call the Rav Machshir. He doesn't want to give me his license, so who's ultimately responsible for that truck? It doesn't belong to the guy, the kid that was driving it. It must have been about 16, 17, 18. I don't know if he even had a license. So all of a sudden, called the Rav Machshir, says, I don't even know who you're talking about. Could you imagine? He had his name posted on a truck, and the boy must have been 16, 17. Now, I would assume that either there's a deal of how much, I don't know exactly the basis of how much the boy gets paid, whether he gets paid on the amount of product he sells, which would, of course, be very additionally problematic, because there's then motivation. You run out of sprinkles, you run out of this, I'm not saying that chas v'shalom there's something that wouldn't be not kosher, but is that for sure? Is he an emon? Is he even religious, the boy? Does he even have any basic halachic ne'emonis? Whatever you're going to bring on the truck, you need some halachic ne'emonis to just sell things. Now, even though the halacha says we're going to get to about deliveries are not so poshut, especially when you're dealing with a Jew and not a goy, but the point is, we're not even talking about halachic ne'emonis as much as reliability. Are you ready to trust somebody that doesn't present in a responsible manner? And then you take this truck, and then you up the food grade of the truck, and it's no longer ice cream. It's now sushi. It's now sushi that they're selling sushi. Now, sushi is really a potential problem, because sushi could be subject to bishalakim. If he runs out of sushi, and I'm sure the truck could be equipped perhaps with a rice cooker, in case he just has to put in the rice and just put in some water and just push the lever down. Maybe it's not equipped with a sushi rice cooker. The point that I'm making is that it could be perfectly legitimate. That's not the point in bringing this discussion up. The point is, when you go to that sushi truck, or you go to that truck that might be selling other food items, and you look at the person, so if you find the person presents like a frum person, so there's not much to worry at that point. But how about if he doesn't make that presentation? How about if he makes a presentation of somebody that you wouldn't necessarily readily be mitzdarf him even to, maybe he doesn't even know how to daven. But maybe he does. But the point is that there's an onus and there's an achrayus to at least look into it. That's my point to be moira. The point is that not that necessarily there's a specific problem that I know of. That's not the case. The first thing is just to know what you're buying. Somebody said to me, most people don't even ask. And that's very true. People go to, we're going to get back into chasna halls, B'ez Hashem. And we're going to get back into all sorts of eating venues. People don't even ask. Somebody called me today about a very popular place in the mountains and asked me about a hashgacha. And it happens to be that I'm not only aware of the hashgacha, I spend time with the person. And they asked me, is this place reliable? So I said, I would not recommend it. They said, you mean for nothing? So I didn't want to be sarcastic and say, no, you could have bottled water there. I didn't want to be, that's not what the lady was looking for, the answer. So I didn't say that. I said, what would you think would be safe? She said, oh, maybe sushi. I said, sushi? I said, sushi is one of the most unsafe things, because it's the simplest thing to be over bishul akam. It takes literally seconds, because the only thing you have to do is just press down the lever of the sushi cooker. Sushi is made in 2 stages. You need to cook the rice, and that's definitely oil al shuch malachim, because you definitely find sushi at a simcha. And I must tell you, our last bar mitzvah that we made, when I was sitting down with my wife to discuss the menu, and everything was going good until she said, now I'm going to tell you what else we're having, and it's not negotiable, and it's not debatable, and I don't even want to comment from you, we're having sushi. With that Hagdama, there was not much to say, you understand. So, behechrich, my Galiciana roots, my Hasidic roots from Tarnov had to be put into the freezer for this particular food, and we had sushi. Sushi at the bar mitzvah. I didn't tell that my father would be rolling in his grave, but Lamaisa, sushi involves rice, and rice gets cooked, and it takes less than 5 seconds. It takes 2 seconds to push down the lever, and then the sushi is usher. The rice cooker not simply could be kashered, because a lot of times there's very little water in it, so the blia could even be a blia that would be matzrich libun, and you can't expose the walls of a sushi rice cooker to libun, and that means you have to throw out the $150 rice cooker. 2-second maisa. So this is what I told this lady. I said to her, sushi is one of the worst things that you could have under this person's hashgacha. But I pass one of this particular restaurant when I go shopping in the mountains, and it's packed. The lines are, and if you would ask the people, and this is what I want to be moira. I want to be moira things which are practical, which you could have biyodcha, the ability to be mashana with a mashahu, with just a mashahu. You take the 30 people waiting online, ask the 30 people, whose hashgach is it under? Most likely, a conservative estimate, 60-70% don't have a clue. Don't have a clue. The point that I'm saying, it doesn't only stop here. In, the bungalow colony, one of the, things which people look forward is that people have kedushim, private kedushim after davening. And I've gone to private kedushim of very big Yireim v'shleimim, and they took out some types of food items which were extremely questionable. There was some goose liver products, goose liver pate, which hashgach of goose itself is a very big shaila. And even some of the agencies that gave on it before rescinded it. It's not so pashut. It's not a share to tell you the exact reasons why it's not so pashut, but it's not pashut at all. And especially it was certified by not necessarily a recognized individual. The point that I'm making is that people have become very comfortable to just take things without really knowing who stands behind what you're buying. That's something which is very correctable, because sometimes it's just a matter of a couple of calls here and there, get familiar with the person, say, oh, this person is a good hashgacha. So anything you say under them, you could have hashgacha in 30 products. So memela, it's one phone call that resolved 30 sveikas. It's so simple, it's so easy. So here is a perfect example of things which are happening midei yom b'yomai, not necessarily exclusively for the summer, but the trucks and the other things are more summer, related, and it's something which people could familiarize themselves. And you know what? If somebody tells you it's not that acceptable, so you go somewhere else. Because the chashash, even though many times there's nothing to worry about in Klape Shmaya, there's no compromise in the food that was produced. But maybe there was. And I must tell you, the Loshen that's brought down in Halicha Shloima. Halicha Shloima writes that he had a story that a person from America came to present Reb Shlomo Zalman with some type of technology that would obviate the potential of Bishul Akum in factories. And he made the presentation. Reb Shlomo Zalman didn't really respond. And the person, having gone to Rav Shlomo Zalman in the past, realized that there was something that was bothering Rav Shlomo Zalman. He says, there's something bothering the Rav. He didn't answer. And afterwards, he kept on with his presentation. And again, Rav Shlomo Zalman did not respond. And he finally said to him, is there something I said that doesn't meet the Rav's approval? And he said, Ich verstehe euch nicht. He says, come to me. He says, people come to me from all of organizations all over Eretz Yisrael with the tremendous, tremendous problem of how to stop intermarriage. The intermarriage rate in Klal Yisrael is staggering. Is lo yu'umin ki yisupper. He said, and I talk to them and I give them eitzis. Obe Chazal. He said, Rav Shlomo Zalman's Chazal, it's a Gemara, it's a Mishnah Mefureshes in Avodah Zarah, that there is a chashash by Bishul Akum of his chatness. Intermarriage. There you have it, black and white. You don't need to go to any statistics. You don't need to do any Chakira Vidrisha. Chazal Beruach Kodsham told us that the single most contributing factor to intermarriage, to schatnus, is Bishul Akum. Mingling, that creates mingling. So Rav Shlomo Zalman said, and you want to have more kulis to make it Bishul Yisrael, even that's Shailadik? So he's upset at him. And then he concluded and he said, B'Shem Rabbi Sol Salanter, that one hiddur, Rabbi Sol Salanter said it'll be something else, but he sort of said it in the same ryan. One hiddur in Bishul Yisrael in America saves an intermarriage in Paris. You hear this, Rabbi saying? So we're talking about Bishul Akum as a David Amibru Mishalaylam. So this is something which is a heresy. There's another Indian that has become a very relevant issue, and especially was relevant in the height of months ago, and in many communities, it's still in full force. And that is the restaurants, the eateries, that the owners of these eateries have been literally so affected, so profoundly affected. And they've tried everything to try to resuscitate and breathe some life into their financial structure of their business. So what did they do? It used to be you go into a restaurant, you see a little sign, I'm all in every fourth or fifth or sixth restaurant, Uber. At first you don't even know what it meant. What in the world is Uber? So then, as things got popular now, Kimat in every restaurant, Uber sign doesn't stand alone. Uber, DoorDash, Grubhub, whatever other names they have, whatever other delivery services. They have multiple delivery services. The services have literally skyrocketed. They are so busy. Their stocks, if they're publicly traded, is through the roof. Because Kimat, the entire, a major part of the entire industry has switched to deliveries. So, therefore what? So therefore now there's a new set of shilas that what was not that common in the past, although yes, relevant, but not that relevant, has become now relevant. And that are the halachas of chasimus, of how things are delivered to you. People have not walked out of their house, thank you very much, they have been so now that has become a relevant issue also, although the halachas of chasimus are not so pashut when there is a real chashash of chasimis lacking, but nevertheless, it should become something which is on your radar, that it should, and it's not. It's very difficult for the hashgachas to keep a cheshbon, because you're talking about, it could be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 deliveries in a span of hours. And you multiply that by dozens of places. How are you supposed to keep up with that? You can't. So the consumer is in need to be able to look at the chasima, and in many cases the rapid, none of the erlicha stores want to do something and send to the customer that just ordered food something that's compromised, chas v'chalila. But the lachatz, the pressure of processing all the orders. Remember, when do you process the orders? You think that they're evenly spread out? They process them in a matter of a short period of time, either lunchtime or supper time, and everything has to go knack. And if you have to wait 5 more minutes, we know that at least we could now be toilet it in the terrible pandemic that we have all become exposed and suffer ADHD and all those initials. We have no patience. We are nervous. We're on the. Lamaisa, you send somebody the food order that they expected 20, and you send it half an hour. So the lachas is tremendous. So maybe they package quickly, and they miss sending it properly sealed. So this is another issue of potential problems. Now, we mentioned before about just the practical aids of just knowing, getting familiar with hashgachas that you pick up. Today, the biggest growth plate of anything that I've seen in the mountains are the supermarkets. Supermarkets have not become supermarkets any longer. It's not like they have a rundown floor, or everything is turned into a beautiful. The supermarkets are beautiful. The mamish, they're gigantic. They're beautiful. The amount, and they fill up the shelves with hundreds and thousands of products. And as we said before, you just can't necessarily. There is no supermarket kimat around. I'm talking about the mountains now, and in the city, it's almost like that. It's not totally like that. That hashgacha will take achrayus on the shelves. They don't. There are very few hashgachas that do. There are very few. There's a handful of hashgachas that do, but only a handful, because it's a very big task. Go ahead and take achrayus for 50,000 products, but it's a task. If you yori l'seif daita of the consumer walks into the supermarket and think everything is certified, but that's not the truth. So the certifying achrayus of making sure that you're getting something certified properly is on the consumer. So l'maisa, I've seen it. You go to a produce section. We're supposed to do a little bit of a type of a update on toiloyim. You go to the produce section. In the produce section, there are plenty of things which are very prepared beautifully from the supermarket itself. There's packages of like soup greens that have parsley and dill in it. None of that's checked. It has the chasima of the supermarket, and there's no simin or no sign indicating that you have to check it. Nothing like that. And then you go, and there are many pre-washed lettuces and greens that are totally wonderful to use with fabulous hashgachas. But on the other hand, there are companies, salad companies. I saw it certainly in a very well and a popular supermarket that it says triple washed. So somebody says triple washed. What could be better than triple washed? Well, it could be that the triple wash does take out the tulim, but there's no focus. It's just to get it clean and to be able to write triple wash. So in the consumer's mind, it's a very clean product and it's very fit to use. And people are grabbing it off the shelf right and left. And Lamaisa, we're in the height of the season of Toiloyim. There are plenty there in the produce section. There are plenty of bags of romaine lettuce literally being grabbed up by people, and you wonder, I am not choshish that somebody's using without checking, but what are the checking methods that they're using? These are things which are necessary for the consumer to be aware. You buy something, understand it's a commitment. It's a commitment to produce it well. No different. Is it anything different? Haga ba'atzmecha. Let's think a minute. In the Zman, I still remember going shopping with my mother to buy a chicken from the butcher, and she taking home the chicken, she's salting it. I remember my mother's salt brettel, and I remember where she stored it. The 9 yards. She would take a chicken and she would salt the chicken. Yeah, would it occur to anybody? You buy a chicken, you're not going to take time. To salt it, you have to salt it, and you have to rinse it. You have to salt. Who has time for this? Would anyone that has any level of zirus and kashrus and any Yiddish fry even cross their mind for a nanosecond that they're going to buy chicken and they're not going to take the time to go ahead and salt it? So now go ahead and make a kal v'chomer ben b'noshel kal v'chomer by romaine lettuce that has potentially many insects in it. And every single insect, it depends what type of an insect. It could be either 4 lavim, 5 lavim, or 6 lavim that a person is over on the ingestion of every single insect. So for salt, where many times it's not even in Issa D'Oraisa. Certain domim are not even in Issa D'Oraisa. And for that, it's unthinkable. But a person has to just be aware and align themselves and understand. You pick something up and put it into your basket, whether it's in the mountains or in the city. Understand, with that choice comes a commitment of doing something and then presumably wanting to do something properly. There are chiburim, there are books, there are videos, there are things that are available. There are available to teach you, but the point is that a person has to be focused to know what to do. So now we spoke about the real kashrus is really basically in your home. Before I go and transfer to real traveling questions of kashrus outside one's house, I just want to briefly mention 2 things, which has also have become, I think, a very popular, more than even over the last 10 years, which this industry has been booming. And that's the vitamin and nutritional industry, especially dieting now. A lot of nutritionists say, instead, you know what, forget about the diet and you have to have your balance your proteins and your carbs and your calories. Is a very simple thing. You know what we're going to do? We're going to give you this powder shake. You take it once or twice a day, and you're done. So most of the power shakes, if a person makes Kollel Yisrael, it's not for them because it's Kollel Stam. Most of the power shakes, most of these diet shakes. But some of these shakes are even more fundamentally problematic, and that is the hashgach on them is very schwach. In order to produce a type of a powdered product, it's a long kashrus journey, not from our standpoint, from the factory standpoint, to produce it, to get it done. The amount of ingredients, pick up the container and give it a flip, and try to read 50% of the products of the ingredients. You won't even be able to pronounce them. What are they? What, animal, mineral, vegetable? What are these ingredients? What are they? You can't even read them, let alone know what they are. So that's another item which has been very strongly pushed. So there certainly are nutritionists erlicha people, erlicha men, erlicha women that will tell you right away, understand, I could only recommend that this product is good, but you have to ask your Rav about the kashrus of it. They will warn them. They'll tell them, they'll warn them, they'll make it focused on it. And that goes as far as nutritional items, that goes as far as diet items, that goes as far as vitamins. All these things. But the good news is that online and the kashrus agencies are filled with practical hadracha on how to go ahead and deal with them. So now let's talk about a little bit of the traveling outside somebody's house. So now we go into hotels. Go into a hotel, you go into outside your mokim, and many times it will come, there's on the outside, they provide you with a barbecue, and it's a very good, some of these barbecues are very good barbecues. Is it practical to kasher a grate? Is it practical to be metapel with a microwave? You go to a hotel, and in every hotel room, it comes standard. If it's a hotel room, it's coming with a microwave and a coffee maker and coffee. If you go to, and a sink, and sometimes a burner, usually glass top burners. You go to Florida, the oilam immigrated to Florida, some people for months, and the only thing that they have is the electric glass top stoves. That's the only thing that they have. Kemat. So you have that, and you're in a hotel, and sometimes you're renting a little tavern, or you're renting a little bit of a small ranch house. So you have even more than just a microwave. You have sometimes a gas stovetop, and sometimes they'll throw in, there's a regular oven, and sometimes even a self-cleaning oven. So where do you have it? You're on vacation, you went away, you went to Vermont, you went to Boston, you went to New Hampshire, you went traveling, and now you want to know practically. You don't want to schlep your whole life with you in a U-Haul and take all these things. You want to be able to go there, have chavas adas, go there, be able to do. So what is Lamaisa to do with all these types of kalim? How do you deal with them? So the way to kasher a grill and a barbecue, I wouldn't recommend it. It's a deal. You have to kasher the top of the grate. You have to kasher the bottom of the grate. And you have to take coals and do it that way. It's saloin sich nicht. It's something which is involved, and there's a lot of tircha. That certainly doesn't pay. Just agav, always during the 9 days, there's always a shaila. Could you take your kosher fleishig grill, and could you grill fish on it? And the answer is, of course not. Because even though by fish and meat, there's no hakpad of blias, but there is a hakpada of be'en. So the recommended thing is you don't use the grate. It's very hard to clean it off. You buy yourself a cedar, what do they call it, a cedar plank. You put it down. You put your fish on the cedar plank. You don't close your cover, because the cover, if you close your cover, the cover could be all filled with be'en of meat. What you do is you keep your cover open. You have your cedar plank, you put your fish on your cedar plank, and nothing else has to be done. But Lamaisa, if something's treif and you want to use a treif, great. It's not really practical. If you have a microwave, to start cleaning a microwave, so generally microwave in a hotel is clean. What you could do is you could wrap it, you wrap it twice. If you puncture it with a small hole, it shouldn't be, the two holes shouldn't be one against the other, just a little bit of a hole so the steam could come out. And then you could double wrap the item, and it could warm up in a decent way, and therefore you have avoided any type of being metapel with trying to kasher that microwave. That's the simplest thing to do. You come prepared, you come with 2 wrappings, you come with 2 bags, and that's how you deal with your microwave. the way that you deal with an oven. If it's a self-cleaning oven, that's simple. You put on the self-cleaning cycle, you clean the oven. If not, and the oven is clean, and you don't want to be soymach on the libun kal that turns it on for an hour, you could just wrap something in silver foil and throw it in there. When one wrapping is enough, and you could comfortably use a treifa oven throughout the entire week. What do you do with the coffee maker? The coffee maker generally, coffee makers bichlal, and coffee, as we're going to now discuss, coffee on the road, is very simple. The coffee, the Mr. Coffee is a little coffee, the glass urns in the rooms. Generally, the way they clean it, the mitzias is that they go to the bathroom and they rinse it out and they dry it and they put it back. They don't take it to the kitchen. They don't take it to the dishwasher, because even if they would take it to the dishwasher, it might not be so posh that even then it would not so posh that it's usher, because it's glass. It's not leia. There's soap. So the bottom line over there is that the coffee, the small coffee urns, the Mr. Coffee carafes do not need to be concerned with that. You could use the coffee. If you're going to use the hotel coffee, you certainly have to make sure, and it's a flavored coffee, you have to make sure that the coffee has a good certification. Now, in general, what do you do with coffee by a gas station, by a rest stop? And I'm not talking about even Ramapo. Ramapo, I think, might have some kosher options. But what do you do by a gas station with coffee? Well, the mitzias is that over there also in the gas station generally, they don't produce food. They don't produce tray for food. And they also have the small carafes. So there's what to be soymich to be able to have coffee even in a gas station. The problem that has emerged over the last many years has been the problem of one of the largest chains of coffee sales, and that is Starbucks. Starbucks, a very popular coffee, very popular choice, and the Kashrus agencies have literally threw themselves into the understanding the way that the Starbucks different cafes operate. And admittedly, the Starbucks administration said in their stationary urns, they don't use a regular paper filter, they use the metal cone filter. They put the grinds in this metal cone. When they want to wash it, they remove it, they put it into the dishwasher, and they wash it in the dishwasher. Now, if it's a small Starbucks that's only selling croissants and coffee, and they have a small dishwasher, and there's no other produced food made in that Starbucks, so then that wouldn't present a problem, because the dishwasher really ostensibly is not really treif. What's treif there? But there are full-service Starbucks. The full-service Starbucks, what they do is that they make bacon, ham and eggs, all sorts of different tarfis options. And they could be washing everything together, bevas achas. So therefore, any type of a coffee or a cappuccino or an espresso, certain types of espressos, are all being made in machines that have parts, that those parts get put into the dishwasher. And if you want to know what yes, what not, the Star K, who really led the charge of doing the most research with this, on their webpage they have a chart with X's and checks and gives you guidance what products are a problem and what products are not a problem. Very practical. However, there's a very big idea to be aware of. If you are traveling and you are tired and you're behind the wheel and there's a Starbucks, a full-service Starbucks, and they have black coffee. They say, I went to a shear. Yeah, they could have been washed in a Bnei. That's not a reason not to buy it. You should buy it, buy the coffee, and drink it, if that's the only choice. Because while you're traveling, it's Pashas HaKadosh Nefashos. Not to be up, not to be completely alert, and you need that shot of coffee, you need a strong coffee, you buy the coffee. Buy the coffee because they're at Torah. L'chatchila, understandably so, that l'chatchila you don't choose that. But when you have no other choice and you're traveling and you need to get through your tiredness, this hour or so that you're really tired, then you get everything is in a check. And that's really indicated on the Star K chart itself. Everything is checked while you're traveling. And that's why there's a little box you say, only acceptable when traveling. You try to understand, what does that mean? They just said in the other box, acceptable at any Starbucks. And it says only acceptable when traveling. What does that mean? It's like very confusing. But the shot is, they tell you everything is okay by traveling when you need the coffee. Because there's yeshal mi lismoich, because of kama other tzadim, there's soap there, there's other tzirufim there that will not really b'di'evid aser, that coffee. So that is as far as coffee is concerned. Another item on traveling is an interesting item. When you're traveling all over the place, you pass a 7-Eleven, and you want to go ahead and have a Slurpee. Your kids are making you crazy. You have to entertain everybody for these long trips, and they want a Slurpee. They go and they go to one of these places. They have these 100-flavor soda machines that could keep them busy for a while, and they could put together whatever flavors they want. It's a really, I don't know if you saw this machine, it's a Moiridik machine. And it has it happens that you become the chef, you become the Saramashkin, you become the winemaker, you become the soda maker. So is that an issue? What about if you go to a place that has ice cream or yogurt that has an OU or another hashgacha? What about that? What about these very practical traveling questions? Well, it happens to be that Slurpees is a very, very big subject of debate among the hashgachas, a very big subject of debate. What's the issue? The issue is that the syrups are mostly certified by the OU. They're Coca-Cola products, certified by the OU. The way the Slurpees work is that there are clear tubes that are attached to the canisters in the back of the store. They get hooked up to the front of the machines in the front, and then you choose a Dr. Pepper Slurpee, a Coke Slurpee, a Diet Coke Slurpee, whatever you want. But Lamaisa, it's like blindly being simich on them because they could have soda in the back that's not. So the agencies, if you look, all talk about l'chatchili, you should go back and look and ask. It doesn't seem, in my opinion, in my mind, knowing kids, that the average kid is going to say, could I go to the back? And also, the people that are in the front, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you said, do you mind if I go all the way to the back? And they'll think you fell off a coconut tree. Like, what are you going to the back to? What are you seeing? What are you looking at? So this is an issue where some of the hashgachas, if you look on the 3 hashgachas that talk about this and have articles about it, about Slurpees, is the OU, the Star K, and the CRC of Chicago. Now, I'm going to read to you what the CRC of Chicago says. They said, listen, at the end of the day, they write up a whole picture of what they feel the halachic guidance of Slurpees are, and they write the following. The best thing is to go ahead and, that the Kashrus agency to personally supervise all the ingredients, to supervise the Slurpee, that's the best thing. Okay, so that is not practical because most Slurpees don't have any hashgacha. The second best choice is, before purchasing the Slurpee, is for you to go back there to make sure that it's tagged and that the front end of what you're dispensing in your cup is really attached to a canister that has a supervision on it. Rabbi said, practical or not practical? I don't think you tell your kids they throw tantrums, you're going to be doing a visit in the back, not them. And I don't know, so maybe you want to go. That's certainly the second best choice. The final choice is that the chashash is so minimal that they would switch from a Coke brand when they're selling Slurpee, which is a Coca-Cola brand of whatever the Slurpee, whatever the drink is, ice and syrup, that it's a miyuta dena, it's a chashash, miyuta de miyuta, and it wouldn't be a problem. Now, that is really quite a number of discussions as far as going into a place like McDonald's, like by Ramapo, and getting a Coke, standing on line in a McDonald's. That already, they're big. There's chilukei deis with that. Rav Moshe was makbid lechatchila. The poiskim, the contemporary poiskim, are makbid, even though they know that you're getting their kosher things there. The best thing is maybe to get a can on one of the side stores that like more the grocery stores versus going and standing on line at the McDonald's stand and asking for a Coke or another treifah stand that make prepared foods. And if you have to do it, there's no other choice. At least maybe if you have a baseball cap, it really doesn't matter which team, quite frankly. You put on a baseball cap and you go in there to put on that yamak shemisim, because all these are items that address the maris ayin aspect. The last thing that I want to talk about in the last 5 or 6 minutes is something which I don't think the average discussion of kashrus really ever handled this in such a way. There's a Gemara Masechtas Nida. I want to read to you this Gemara Masechtas Nida. Where it says like this: Amar Reb Shimon ben Yochi. Reb Shimon ben Yochai says, "Hey dvarim, hein. There are 5 things sha'isa oisan mischayev benafshay v'damay beroishay." And Rashi HaKadosh says that the person was goyim la'atzmai, that he put himself in a sakana, and the Rebbeinu Shalom damay beroishay, that the Rebbeinu Shalom would be teveah him acham isasai, why he was goyim his own misa. And the Gemara then lists, I'm only going to talk about the first 3 things on the list. Ha'eichel shum kolef, if you eat shum kolef, garlic, that's totally peeled. Ubatzel kolef, ubeitza kalufa. And the Gemara says that that's only she'avar leim alayla. That's only if they stayed open overnight and you ate them. Now, there's a great way to avoid it. Put it in a container and seal the container and put it in the fridge. No problem. So zok the Gemara weiter. V'afagav de manchi besilta, even if it was munach, Rashi learns besal, never the umitzayre v'chasime, and it's all wrapped up and sealed. Nevertheless, ruach ra shoyra aleihem. The ruach ra is shoyra on it. So I want to read to you a tshuva from the Kloisenberger Rebbe that he wrote. It was based on a shmooze that he gave, Lag BaOmer, 1976. It's Mavel al Arayin. Mavel al Arayin. The reason why I chose to even mention this the last few minutes is because Rabbi Yosef Klal Yisrael is still not yet out of this pandemic, even though Baruch Hashem, in the place that we live, there's been a very limited amount, but we see people wear masks, they don't wear masks, people in the whole world does wear masks. The whole world does. I'm not advocating, in any shape or form. I'm just telling you that there's definitely where we're not out of the woods yet. And it's a zman of din and magefa. So now take that, and now let's expose ourselves to things which Chazal say in the best of times. There's a ruach rosh aleim in the best of times. Dama Baruch, and listen to the heilige words of the Kloisenberger Rebbe. The Rebbe writes the following. The Rebbe writes, Yashavti visbainanti besibas hadover. He says, I sat down and I thought to myself, what is going on with all the machlis and all the accidents and all the troubles in Klal Yisrael? The Kloisenberger Rebbe said he came to Maskonas Hadvarim on why all these things are happening. And he writes, V'libi oimerli, shezeh borer kashemesh. You hear this Rabbi say, borer kashemesh. Shezeh machmesh ein ishorim b'me'achilas beitzim kalufim, shover le'em alayla. That is like the most prevalent, but hu adin, the Gemara makes no differentiation between onions and garlic also. Garlic less used, onions more frequently, but eggs very, very comprehensively. Like they used to in the Alte Zeiten, the Kloisenberger Rebbe writes. V'chein shar machlis lo yaleinu she'ein lahem mozar v'trufa heim al yidei ruach hara shenishnu kan. It's because of the ruach hara that the Gemara talks about. Hagam fashtetzich. It's important to say it's not brought down halach l'maisa. It's not brought down in Shulchan Aruch. This is brought down in Siman Kuf Tef Zayin in Yeridea, where it talks about Mayim Ugulim. There's a siman of Mayim Tzoyim and Kuf Ayin Gimel in Orach Chaim about washing your hands, rinsing your mouth between fish and meat. But there's no halacha that addresses itself about Beitza and Shum and Botzel. And the Kloisenberger writes, V'ulai ramzu b'masha kosev v'domei b'roishoy. The Kloisenberger writes, the fact that the Gemara used the lashon v'domei b'roishoy shemiyad b'ochloi. This is so incredible. Miyad b'ochloi hareyu kvar muchlet kegarva katila lo yaleinu. You hear the words of the Kloisenberger? Mama lo yu'umen ki yasupper. It's maval al arayim was yotza mi pi kodshoy. He writes, the reason why the Gemara writes Domei B'roish is such a stark lashon, because the moment a person goes ahead and does this, he's signed as a Gavra Katila. He's considered mace. Ki miyad k'sha'ich le'im mekablim koyach livgoim. The Ruach Ra has a koyach livgoim be'ivarim shaloi v'shakli l'chiyusei. And it takes away the chiyus of the Eivarim. Yitochein sheyishev v'yarech oid yomim v'shonim. It could be that it'll live quite a number of years longer. Avol soif l'ilkos b'zeh. But the Ruach Ra will catch up to it. Kvar mishasa chilosi domi b'roishoy. And therefore he says, L'fika choyv al kol ya'achid. L'hakbet al zeh b'mishnah zehiris. That's why the Kloisenberger Hasidim are literally, they will not eat challah, they won't eat pastries, they won't eat anything unless it's frisha ayah. Now, it's very late, and there are mukomis lahakol, and it's Yedua that Rav Shlomo Zalman writes in Halicha Shlomo, in Hilchas Tefillah, in Perek Chof. He writes, he has a Kabbalah, may Adam la'Adam, back to the Gra that the Goyin wrote, that from the moment Avram ben Avram was burnt at the stake in 1749, on the second day of Shavuos, in the 1749, there was such a rash in Shemayim, the Kiddush Shem Shemayim that he made. There was such a rash that he was machlish the koyach of Ruach Tumah in the Welt. And that's why there are tzirufim lahakil in these inyanim. But Lamaisa, at least let's leave this shir with the understanding that when Chazal say that a person has to be careful from completely peeled garlic And an onion, you have onion, if it keeps the onion, if the hairs on the bottom are still on, so then you could keep that part of the onion. That is mutter. The Gemara says it clearly. With the sarei sar, there are also ways to get it with salt and oil, but it has to be enough salt that it tastes. Can't be just a mashu of salt. And also eggs, that their way, that, and there's machlekes whether it's referring to a open egg. Some want to say that it's not considered a raw egg because that would say, it wouldn't say koluf, it would say shavur, not koluf. Koluf means it's peeled. That means that a person should not peel his eggs on Friday if he's going to wait for eggs to make tzibul and I on Shabbos morning. He should keep them with the peel and have them samach lachila where it's not an isser boirer. But anyway, it's kedai, certainly even if you're not makbid. And that's a kabbalah not to be makbid during this man, that there's such a ruach of din ba'olam. Certainly, we want to fulfill the heilige words of the Kleisenberger Rebbe and be zar and be mevi aleinu ve'al kol beiseinu, only bracha v'shefa hagana and a shmira elyoina. Thank you for listening.
Shem Egan Shir Torah, Moses Boston, I'd like to give a big shakayach to Rabbi Eisen for the very informative shir. I'd like to give a big shakayach to Mr. and Mrs. Noach Karas for sponsoring tonight's shir. Really Nishmas, Yisha Gittel Chanabas, Aaron Akerna, Sholem, and Reb Chaim Yitzchak ben Avrom, Zechon Levrocha. Boisai Egan Shir Torah's annual dinner is coming up. One time a year that Egan Shir Torah has an event to help support us with the Habatzas Torah Dram Worldwide. Special opportunity to put an ad in the journal to honor one of the Rabbanim B'Shir may have enjoyed and helping the Habatzas Torah of Irgun Shir Torah worldwide throughout the year. Call 718-851-8651 or email tapecenter@yeshivanet.com. There's great opportunity. There's also 1 week remaining of Shiurim. You can sponsor a shir. You can also call the same number, 718-851-8651 for that great schus. I should to everyone for coming. Rechananya ben Akash Yemar Otzakadosh Baruch Hu Lezakes Es Yisrael Afiga Himmel Am Torah Mitzvah Shneim Al Noach Chofes Am Tzidka Yagdol Torah V'Yadeh.